Welcome back, guys, to another episode of the Stepback Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. If you listened to the first episode, thank you. We appreciate it. Let's kick it off. Aiden, let's get it.
So for the idea of the video for today is going to be a tier ranking for both conferences. There's 5 tiers in each conference. We're going to have our title favorite, the team that we think is going to come out of each conference, our title favorites, and then contenders. We'll have a couple teams from each conference that we could make it out and make it to the finals. Our playoff locks, and then also the teams that could possibly make the playoffs, but we wouldn't be surprised if they dropped out. And then lastly, we'll also talk about the lottery teams, the teams that have no chance, and that are tanking for some of the other picks. Before we get right into it, as some of you may know, the NBA has changed the seeding this year. Instead of having a hard line at 8 teams that make the playoffs, this year they will have a play-in game for 10 teams. And the reason for that is just because of the COVID protocols. There's a lot of guys that are going to miss games, which is going to hurt the record of a couple of teams. As we've seen with teams like the Miami Heat, they've missed games because of guys out due to COVID tracing. So the NBA was just going to have a lenient playoff line that gives an opportunity for a couple of teams, especially if there's a close playoff race. And then there'll be a playoff game from 10, 9, 8, and 7. But for right now, for the purpose of this video, we're going to consider playoffs the 8 seed. But let's get right into it. We'll start with the Eastern Conference, and we'll get into one of our lottery teams.
All right. So I feel like right off the bat, the Cavs makes that list right off the bat for me. They're currently sitting at 10-19 with not a whole lot of options. For me, I feel like they're probably my favorite. Even though the Wizards are down there in the cellar dweller, I feel like they're gonna win a few more games. I don't know. Like I feel like they're gonna do just enough to not have a lottery pick, so they'll miss that. But for my first team on that list would be the Cavs. The other two, which I'm actually curious to see what you guys have, would be the Magic and the Pistons.
Oh, so you have the Magic in there?
Yeah, I do have the Magic in there. I feel like the Wizards are going to do just enough to surpass the Magic, and the Magic would be in those bottom 3 teams. But I feel like the Cavs are going to take the cake on that one.
Yeah. I made a list prior to the season, and the Magic were one of my teams that were a playoff contender. They've been an 8 seed, I believe, the last 3 years, an 8 or 7 seed. But with the injuries that they've gone through, they're one of the teams that's falling off. They're currently 10-18. Cleveland started off the season really hot, looking nice with Andre Drummond and Colin Sexton leading the way, but they've fallen off, and especially looking to trade or buy out Drummond, I definitely think that they'll be one of the teams at the bottom. The other team I have as a lottery team is the Pistons. Blake Griffin looks like he might be on the move if they can find a suitor for his contract. But definitely looking to rebuild. They added a nice piece in Grant. He's looking nice, but definitely going to be at the bottom, probably looking at one of the top 3 picks.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty like those 3 teams in the bottom 3 are basically like locked in to just be the lottery picks, or one of them are. I would say the Wizards or the Pistons, more likely, as much as the Cavs are like on an 8-game losing streak right now. I feel like they're just a little bit better. I mean, like, they're just a little bit better than the Wizards and the.
No, I didn't realize that
Pistons.
the Cavs had lost 8 straight.
Yeah, they're like they've lost 8 straight
1-9.
right now.
They're 1-9 on their last 10.
If Russ and Bradley Beal can like kind of put something together somewhat throughout the rest of the season, I don't think they will be the lottery pick. But I feel like you mentioned, with Blake Griffin might be getting traded, the Pistons are probably most likely going to be that lottery pick.
Which it actually kind of surprises me.
Yeah, that's why the Wizards didn't make my lottery team.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it really surprises me that they are that far down, considering the fact that they have guys like Beal and Westbrook on the team. I mean, I feel like with those 2 guys alone, they should be winning at least a few ball games. But I guess we'll see as time goes on. That's why they didn't make the bottom of my list either.
Maybe the chemistry is just not quite there, or just the overall team. Like, who else do they have that's actually like any solid player other than like those 2 players? You know what I mean?
Well, they've got some young talent, but like I don't see Hachimura hasn't done a whole lot this year. And I mean, just last night's game was like filled with like rookie mistakes and just absolute low IQ basketball. I mean, you take a look at the end of the game where they're trying to just run down the clock and Rui Hachimura throws the ball out of bounds. It's stupid
Yeah, I
stuff like
saw
that.
that was
That's like,
brutal.
yeah, I watched. I'm like, and these guys are getting paid how much? So
Yeah.
But that's the reason why I have them as potentially not lottery teams. I have them as a playoff contender, playoff hopeful. Is because I mean they're only from the 8th seed, they're 3 games back, which doesn't sound like that much, but it is a pretty hard gap to close. But with guys like Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal, if they can somehow figure it out, somehow get some defensive players in there to help them out. That like Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal, that's a lot of talent right there. They could potentially make a run. But yeah, I have them as a playoff contender, but not a lottery team this year.
yeah.
Yeah.
So then are we
Do you
going
guys
on
want to take a
to
look at some other? Yeah, we'll move on to some other playoff contenders. So just on the cusp, who else do you guys have as playoff contenders?
In the East right now, are we halfway through the season yet? Is it more than half? Or is it just
I
about
think
half?
we're about a third.
Okay, so we're not even a third of the way. I feel like
It's about a
almost
third.
it's almost too, I wouldn't say too early to tell. I would almost say that in the East, especially because when you take a look at like basically from like 7, 8 to like the 12th team, they're all pretty
Yeah.
like close.
yeah.
And I could see
Yeah.
team like the Miami Heat like turning things around and being like the team that they were last year. I could see maybe the Bulls, maybe. I mean, it's hard to say with the Bulls. The Raptors that are always a solid team with Kyle Lowry and everything. Kyle Lowry's playing so good. I don't know. The East is kind of hard, so I'd say a lot of the teams from basically 8 to 12 are almost, I'd say, contenders. Maybe stick
So
with
do
that.
you have the Miami Heat as a contender to the playoff?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have them as a lock. I think the way that they've just been completely ravished by COVID protocol, I think I don't see any way that Jimmy Butler doesn't get him in there. Like, I think saying a lock is probably risky on my part, but I just don't see a team like the Hornets or the Knicks like beating out the Heat with 50 more games to go in the season, 40 more
As-
games to go in the season. But
as
another
far
thing,
as
like
like
you said, yeah, go ahead, Micah.
well, I was gonna say, like, as far as a risky bet goes, I'd say it's a relatively safe one. Like, if you were to look at all the teams that are on the cusp right now, so considering
Yeah.
how early the season is, to like combine it with the fact that you have like the kind of veteran leadership in a guy like Jimmy Butler, and the fact that like it or not, whether people believe they deserve to be there or not, they were in the NBA Finals last year with not much changes to their team. So it's like I feel like that would definitely be a safe lock, for sure. But I'll let you. What were you saying?
Yeah, I was going to say, like Sam said about the whole, like, it's almost too early to tell. A lot of this can change going down the season when teams, hey, maybe we don't want to be a playoff contender. We want that pick. Like the Chicago Bulls, they might say, hey, what's the worth in us going to an 8 seed just to get knocked out if we can go and get a top pick? Or like the New York Knicks, like Julius Randle's been balling. There's a lot of teams that I'm sure would like to take a look at him. They might just say, hey, there's no point in us being an 8 seed. Let's go sell hard on Julius Randle and go tank for it. So that's what I would say. Another team that I have playoff contenders, Atlanta Hawks, Trae Young. The offseason additions of Rajon Rondo, Danilo Gallinari, they just haven't really come together that well. But Trae Young definitely could possibly make a push, but I don't have them as a lock. I have them as a contender. And then, I have the Knicks also as contenders. We'll see what happens with them. And then the Charlotte Hornets have been making a nice push. LaMelo Ball is coming into his own. Terry Rozier's looking nice as a scoring option. Gordon Hayward, that rounds out my contenders.
Okay. Yeah, that's about all the contenders I would really say.
Yeah, I feel like they're certainly in the game. That rounds it off pretty well as far as the Eastern contenders go. But like, what Samuel, what do you have for your locks? Like, do you like for sure locks? I'm guessing it's gonna be a lot of the teams we did.
Well, it's gonna be it's gonna be a culmination of tier 1, 2, and 3. But like locked, we got, I would say, Pacers, Celtics, like the top 5 teams right now. I would say, based on
All
the way they've
locks?
been playing, are all locks.
Yeah.
The Knicks could be a lock. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about the Knicks.
I wouldn't be confident if putting my money saying that they're a lock. They could
I
make
don't
it,
know.
but I agree they're not a lock.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I had them. I had them in my contenders list. I didn't list them as a lock.
So what do you guys think about these two teams, the Raptors and the Heat? I think you guys said the Heat are contenders for both of you.
Yeah,
yeah, I would say the
I
contenders.
had them as a lock. So I put them as a lock.
Yeah.
And what about the Raptors? Did you guys have them as
Raptors.
contenders?
Go
Go
ahead,
ahead,
Samuel.
Micah.
You're good.
All right. So I don't think I put the Raptors as a lock. I haven't watched a ton of Raptors basketball lately, but I mean it's kind of the same with the Heat. They could be a lock. They could be they could be a definitely team that's like, okay, they're for sure going to be in the playoffs, or things could just not go the right way throughout the rest of the season. I don't really know.
Yeah, I just think they're one of those teams that's been like locked up at a 3 to 4 seed the last couple of years. Like they know how to win. They started off the season like 2 wins in their first 8 or something, and now that the fact that they're here, they've already made great strides to get up there. I'm gonna take the Raptors all day, at least making the playoffs over a team like the Hornets or the Knicks. I think they'll get it done. But yeah, I also have the Pacers. Pacers are always a good 4 or 5 seed, very solid team. Even with injuries, they're always cool. Celtics, no way they're going to miss it out. They've been struggling lately. They're 3-7 in their last 10, but there's no way they're going to fall out completely of the playoffs.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyone else you guys want to mention, or are we moving on to our contenders?
Yeah, I'd say let's move on to our contenders. For me, I would have to definitely say that my two contenders, which by method of deduction, you'll figure out who my favorite is, but the two contenders that I have are the 76ers and the Bucks. I mean, right now as it stands, they're the top two in the league. 76ers at 18-10 and the Bucks at 16-11. However, down the stretch, I mean, we can talk about favorites a little bit later, but I'll mention I just feel like the Nets are the favorite of this conference, given the three options that they have in Harden, Irving, and KD. I just don't think that the Bucks or the Sixers have as much options, or I don't know. I guess it would be close,
Yeah,
but
I agree.
yeah, those are the contenders I have would be the 76ers and the Bucks. They're doing great right now, but I don't foresee them beating out the Nets in the end.
Yeah. The thing I would say is I want to put it on the record that the Bucks were a team that last year I did not consider a contender, like a true contender. Every year people buy into the hype of the Bucks. They're a fantastic regular season team. And even though the only reason I have them as a contender this year, like I picked the Heat to beat him last year. Like I just don't like Giannis in the playoffs, the way that they are able to defend him. But with the addition of Drew Holiday, I think they are legit contenders this year. The 76ers have been playing Ben Simmons just put up 42 last night. Like they're looking really good. So I have them as contenders. And even though the Nets defense is just absolutely atrocious, Hassan Whiteside played 24 minutes yesterday and had 26 points, 5 blocks, and 16 rebounds off the bench. So their defense is terrible, but the Nets are one of those teams that's going to get I think they're going to get a really good big on the buyout market. Maybe that's Andre Drummond or some other player. But I think they'll defense that will be helped a little bit, but they are my favorites as well. But Sam, are you looking the same, or do you have any different?
Yeah, I'm looking the same, and I'll just like basically have to repeat what you guys said. I cannot see KD, Harden, and Kyrie losing.
Yeah, I don't want to bet
Like
against them.
I
No.
can't. I literally can't. Like KD basically went from Golden State where he had Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson, and he just went to Brooklyn, and now he has Kyrie Irving and James Harden. Like it's insane. I would be just flabbergasted if they lost in the Eastern Conference Finals. However, my question would be 76ers and Bucks.
Yeah.
Who do you have winning
that could change in the finals, but
no, right. Who do you have winning that over that? Like I say, like can they play against each other?
Two. Well, yeah,
are they in the same division?
Depending on the seeding.
Depending on the seeding, they could play against each other. Who would you have winning over the other?
I
would say the 76ers.
I would take the Bucks hesitantly just because I haven't really seen the 76ers really get it to going in the playoff. Like I don't know if we're seeing is completely real from them. I think it is, but I just think the Bucks, even though they always choke in like the second round, the 76ers just don't really play their best basketball in the playoffs. I would take the Bucks, but it's a real toss up.
I would go with the Sixers. I feel like they have
How about you,
more
Micah?
upside.
Decision.
I mean, personal preference. I mean, you both know that I'm a huge Giannis fan, so I've got to go with the Bucks just because of that. Like, I'm pulling for them. As far as realistically, honestly, I still feel like it's too early in the season to tell. Once we get down the stretch a little bit more and see how they do against various teams, as well as the kind of winning streaks or losing streaks that they put up from here now. Like, yeah, the Philadelphia Sixers are doing pretty good right now, but it's like, I don't know. I just don't see them beating a healthy Bucks team. Having said that, though, if the Bucks played like they have in the past in the playoffs and the 76ers actually show up in the playoffs, it could be a different story. So that's why for me it's a toss up, but I just preferentially I'd go with the Bucks.
Yeah.
We'll see how it goes throughout the rest of the season. But
Yeah, you guys want to
moving on
throw
to
it
the
over to the
West. Yeah, let's
Yeah.
take a look at the West.
Yeah.
Back at tier 5 in the lottery picks. I mean, it's like the Timberwolves suck.
Yeah, let's
They
throw that
suck.
first team out there. The Timberwolves
Yeah,
suck.
the Timberwolves.
They are
Yeah.
so
Timberwolves
bad.
suck.
Like Anthony Edwards and a couple players like him.
Towns. They
Go
missed
ahead.
Towns for a lot of time with injury, and he got COVID too. He's had a really rough year, just like overall in his life as well. They have the number 1 pick in Anthony Edwards. Anthony Edwards is cool.
He's putting up solid rookie numbers right now.
I would
feel
leave
like
it at that though. He's cool. Like he's nothing. I don't think he's like this was a weak draft. It was a really weak draft. He is cool. He takes some time. He'll be a great scorer. Maybe be like a 24-point scorer, 22-point scorer. But he's just been cool. D'Angelo Russell, unfortunately, they just found out he's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks. He's got to go through surgery. So that's going to be a big hit for them. But even when they were all playing together, they're so bad defensively. Like
defensively,
you have D'Lo, 20-point scorer, Cat, 20-point scorer, Malik Beasley, 20-point scorer, and then you have Anthony Edwards who can hoop. But they just suck. They can't defend anyone. They give up like 140 points. They're going to finish right there at the bottom, looking at another top 3 pick potentially. Yeah, and then the other teams that I have right there at the bottom, it's going to be the Houston Rockets, just because, I mean, they're one of those teams. They have the talent. They could potentially make a run. They got John Wall, Oladipo, Christian Wood, DeMarcus Cousins. But it looks like they're trying to trade Oladipo away, which makes me think that they're trying to embrace the tank, which makes sense to them. With a loaded conference like this, there's kind of no point in trying to go in there and contend. Like Christian Wood's a great young talent, go get a pick. But yeah, those are two teams at the rock bottom. I think there's 2 other ones that I would put in there, but I'll throw it over to you guys.
Yeah. I had the same 2 rounding off my bottom with the T-Wolves and the Rockets. The only other team that I would have in the bottom 3, like I would say for sure, would just be the OKC Thunder. I mean, they've got no one, like literally nobody. So it's like if I were them, if I were their upper management, I would tank and try to get another first, like one of those 1 or 2 picks. Hopefully the first pick. Because like they're young, like they've got a lot of growing to do. They are nowhere near close to even possibly being a contender. I feel like they're still a couple of years off. So it's like, all right, might as well. You're in the rebuilding stage. The glory days of KD and Westbrook are way behind you. So I honestly think that they're probably going to be sitting at the 2nd or 3rd pick. I think the Wolves have it locked in. I mean, they're 7-20. They're 4 games behind
it all
the
depends
next seed above them.
I would not tank right now though. You're like if I was upper management, I would not be tanking right
for
now
OKC?
at this point.
Yeah,
it might be like a third.
Their entire team for picks. They have like 24 picks the next 4 years.
Yeah,
I know, but like you still play basketball though. Like
right,
you're still gonna, you're not going to be like we're just gonna
lose games.
Dude, the Pelicans are 12 and are 12 right behind them. They're 11-15. I wouldn't tank now. Maybe later, but I would not now.
I'm not saying that they've got to potentially throw and go 11-70 or however long the season is this year. But I will say it's like you fast forward a couple more months and they're still sitting at the 13th seed. I'm just like forget.
No,
it.
I know
like,
what you mean. I know what you mean.
No need. Yeah, especially in a conference that is strong. Like I think. I mean. We'll get to it later, but I think the winner is coming from the Western Conference, hands down. So
I think what he was meaning more or less, not with tanking as just trying to lose, but just like embracing that losing is okay. Like you
yeah,
have your picks now. You have
Yeah.
Shea, he's a young piece, and then not like let's not play George Hill, who's a good solid NBA player. Let's not play him 35 minutes a game. Let's go let our young players get the ball. So another two teams, I put everyone else in contending just because I see the talent on everyone else's team and could
yeah,
potentially make a run. Two interesting teams are the Kings and the Pelicans. The Pelicans have so much talent to be this bad. Like I just don't know if it's a coaching issue with Stephen Gundy. But they're so bad defensively. But they have so many good defensive players. I just don't understand how they're so bad. Bledsoe, Lonzo, great backcourt defensively. Ingram's lanky. Zion can protect the paint. Steven Adams is really good, strong inside. I just don't understand why they're so bad. I think they need a culture change. I think Lonzo needs to go. I think they need to try to get rid of Bledsoe. And the Kings are a team I wanted to put near the bottom. But with De'Aaron Fox, the way they're playing this season, they're just running down the floor. They're running and gunning. They're a very exciting team to watch. I think they have a fighter's chance. They're 12-15. They're about 2.5 games out of the 8 seed. I think they can make a push if they got it going. Do I anticipate them making it? No, but I don't think they're a lottery team either.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm disappointed in the Pelicans. I don't.
For sure.
It's they could be just so much better. I don't know why they're not. The contenders. There's so many contenders. The Mavericks. I don't know. I wouldn't.
For
I
the
don't
playoffs, right?
for the playoffs. Yeah.
yeah. We'll move on to this. Yeah,
The Grizzlies.
The
title
Grizzlies.
contenders.
Ja Morant. No, but okay. The Grizzlies are 11-11. They're 500 right now. I feel like they're. They're definitely not a lock. I would almost have a hard time saying they're a contender. Like,
No, they're contenders.
they're contenders.
Bro,
You think so?
Bro, they didn't have.
I know they are, but like, it's just they're. I don't know.
Bro, they don't
It's
have
close.
Jaren
Sorry, are you
Jackson
saying-
Jr. He hasn't played all season for them, and then Ja Morant missed 3 weeks, and they held themselves.
Okay, that's
Like,
true. That's
like,
true. That's true.
they're one of those teams that's so weird. Like Zion Williamson, it was that draft class that when he and Ja went to a team with kind of no one, and then Zion went to the team that just got Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, Jackson Hayes, all these dudes. JJ Redick came in. And the Pelicans just suck. And the Grizzlies they play gritty basketball. They have guys like Grayson Allen, Tyus Jones, Dylan Brooks, everyone that has a chip on their shoulder. They just have play good basketball. They hovered around last year. Like last year, they were right there.
That's true.
Believe that the Blazers beat them in the playing game. Like
So
if it weren't for that little rule, they would have technically made the playoffs. But yeah, the Mavericks are in there. Mavericks are starting to play better basketball. They'll definitely be a contender. I didn't have them as a lock just because how like hard this conference is. And then the last team I have the two more teams, the Spurs. We'll touch on the Spurs a little bit. They're just a really well coached team. DeMar DeRozan's been great this season. I know Sammy had him in his All-Star. Showing him.
Wait, do you have him as a
super well coached?
Do you have them as a contender then or a lock? Like, are we
contender?
Okay.
Contender.
Yep.
Okay.
I just think there's so many teams that still need a spot. Like I see the Nuggets at 7, Warriors at 8, the Mavericks at 10. Like I think Mavericks will get in there. One team's got to go, and it might be the Spurs, but they're also just very well coached. But we'll see down the stretch. But I have them as a contender. Yeah. And what about let's talk about the last team that I have on my contenders is the Warriors. Do you guys have them as contenders or do you have them as a lock?
I have them as contenders.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't have them as a lock. It would be a little too much to say they're a lock, I'd say.
Yeah.
Because
I think
they're playing of
the Warriors.
They are playing really well. Like they are playing pretty I mean, Stephen Curry's doing what Stephen Curry does and he's just unreal. But like that just watching them play, you can tell they're still getting coached by Steve Kerr. I don't know if that makes sense or not. Like I don't know. But I don't think they're a lock.
So then I feel like we've talked about the contenders for quite a bit. So like I'll get us started on the locks. I think we can all agree that the Utah Jazz, without question, is a lock. I mean, 23-5. Honestly, I personally did not see them with that kind of record at this point in the season, especially after the absolute failure that they've had in the playoffs the past 2 years is it now? Especially last year. Last year was a disaster for them. Obviously, you have the Lakers. The Clippers also make that list. They're too good to not be in the conversation for locks. And I also do have the Trailblazers. I mean, I feel like they're the most surprising team in my opinion. The fact that they're at 16-10, and yet they're missing McCollum and Nurkic, as we mentioned last week on our first episode.
Yeah.
So the fact that they're at 16-10 with arguably their second and third go-to guys as far as like supporting the team. I don't know. I hope I'm thinking that they're going to be in the top three. Honestly, I think they're going to make that third spot. And then the Nuggets, even though they're sitting at 15-11 in the 7th seed, I've got them making that for sure. They have too much talent to miss out this year. I feel like they're a safe bet for being locked in.
Yeah, they're always like a 2-3 seed. They'll figure it out. But yeah, as we try to wrap up here in like the next 5-6 minutes, we'll try to fly through these. Portland Trailblazers, yeah, I have them as a lock for sure. The Phoenix Suns, with the addition of Chris Paul, they're looking really well. I can't really see them missing the playoffs. If Chris Paul can take a team, the OKC Thunder, with like really no one on that squad, I'm sure he can take Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, Mikal Bridges. They'll make a run. Denver Nuggets, like you said, they're not going to miss out. The only issue that I had with what you said was Utah Jazz and the Clippers. Do you have them as just locks, or do you have them as upper contenders as well?
No, those are the two teams that made my upper contenders.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I have the same. The Utah Jazz, I'm kind of scared to say that it's real, but as I've been doing my research, the Utah Jazz and just watching them play, Donovan Mitchell used to be the guy last year where he literally had to almost average 50 points for them to win a playoff series, and they ended up losing in 7. But this year, Bogdanovich is back in. Jordan Clarkson is playing 6th man of the year type basketball. And like I was talking to Sam a little bit before the podcast, is 40% is kind of the benchmark for an elite shooter from 3. They have 5 guys that played rotational minutes that knocked down the 3 at a 40% clip or higher. Like
That's
is
nuts.
elite shooting. They are the best
That's
shooting
wild.
team. And then they're probably one of the best defensive teams, anchored by Rudy Gobert in the middle. So yeah, sitting at 23-5, they won 11 straight. They lost 1 and they won 8 again. So they have won. In their last 20, they've won 19 games. Yeah, I have them as a contender. I think what they are is real. So I put them as a contender along with the Clippers. We know what the Clippers can do.
I would put them as the title favorites this year. They choke in the playoffs, but the way they're playing right now, it's pretty unreal at this point. I mean,
Clippers?
It's only a third of the. No, I'm talking the Jazz. Like, you had them as a contender.
You expect them to come out of the West?
I would expect the Jazz to be the title favorites in the West. If they continue to play the way they are, I'm a huge Lakers fan, and I would love to be like, oh no, screw the Jazz. But like the Lakers, they're playing great. They're still playing Laker basketball. It just Anthony Davis, once he gets back from his,
that scares me.
That's the scary part right now. He's just got hurt. He'll be out 2 weeks at least, 3 weeks.
They said 2 to 4 weeks, but they said they're probably gonna go like very cautious with him.
Yeah, so it's probably gonna be another 5-6 weeks in my opinion before he's back. And but yeah, like you mentioned, it's kind of the Jazz are my favorites. I would have the Clippers and the Lakers as title contenders clearly, but I don't know. I'm taking the Jazz.
And as most people know, I'm a Lakers fan. The question I would ask for you is like the Utah Jazz for sure are playing the best basketball in the league right now. But let's say like if you had $1,000 to bet, like who would you put it on and there's a series between the Lakers and Utah or the Clippers in Utah? Like I think I would just be very surprised if Utah actually beat LeBron James or Kawhi Leonard in the 7-game series. They're definitely the best team in the league right now, but in playoff time, I would be very surprised.
And that's what I think it boiled down to. Like I do have the Lakers, and that's why I picked the Lakers, not because I have any love for them at all. I mean, said that again. I don't like them, but like them or not, I do respect LeBron. And his ability to win games and to clutch up in the playoffs is obviously it needs no explanation. So that's why I had the Lakers. It's like I'm not basing everything off of last year's Jazz failure, however you want to word it. However, it's like if I were to bet, like you said, 1,000 on a team that like choked after what was it? Weren't they up 3-1? Like it was insane. Like they absolutely choked
The
versus
playoffs
a
are so
team
different.
Yeah, and
Everyone chokes
like
in
you
the
said, it's like
playoffs.
it could be different this year. I mean, obviously, it's because I'm no fan of the Lakers. I would love seeing the Jazz being the ones out of the West. I mean, I think that would just be super cool. But I don't think I've yet to see LeBron falter in the playoffs, and
Yeah,
you've already seen
I
in
would
the
say
past
yeah.
2 weeks. You've seen in the past 2 weeks he's been in what 3-4 overtime games, and
Yeah.
has come up clutch in all of them, proving that it's like yeah he's not washed up by any means necessary. Not
Yeah.
saying he is, but
I would say as a Lakers fan, just to caution people, don't get cocky as Lakers fans and be careful of the Clippers because I think the Clippers got really cocky last year. But if you watched them the year before they got Kawhi, that was the team that took the KD Warriors to 6 games as an 8 seed. Like they're just a very they want to be a low key team. They don't want to have the publicity. And I think that's the mistake they made last year. They wanted everyone to have their eyes on them. No one is talking about them this year at all. And I think that's the position they should want to be in. But yeah, that rounds off my left. I have the Lakers as the favorites, maybe a little biased to me, but I think if Anthony Davis can get healthy, I bet on the Lakers every time in the postseason.
Yeah, don't ever bet against LeBron. Ever. But anyways, I think that wraps it up for this episode.
Yep.
West, East, contenders, favorites, all that good stuff. We'll continue to be following the rest of the season and see which teams kind of appear and disappear type idea. So thanks for listening to the podcast, second episode. Appreciate y'all, and we'll see you next time.
See you next week, everybody. Thank you.